I'm Lauren. I'm a senior at UC Berkeley.
Hi, I'm Tanushri. I'm a senior at Brown University.
And today we're talking about the pros of using different text editors. So first, text editing is one of the most influential inventions of all time. It replaced punch cards and it facilitated the rapid development of software. It's built one of the most powerful industries in the world. Here is an overview of some of the most popular text editors available today. We've divided the editors into 3 categories. So there's command line editors, standalone code editors, and IDEs. Note, however, that there's a significant overlap between the 2 categories. So for example, Vim is a command line editor, but it can also be used as a standalone editor in other applications. For example, something called Mac Vim. You can also use a text editor called Emacs through an application called Spacemacs. And it's confusing because all these things kind of can be used in other applications. So just take the categories as a general guideline, but you might see some overlap. So let's talk about command line editors. Command line editors don't have their own application Windows system, but instead run inside your terminal. There's a video that we have about command line basics, and you could watch that. So you'll go to your terminal, go into the command line. There are 2 editors we're going to talk about, which are Vim and Emacs. There are large communities that use both of these editors. The command line editors are nice for a few reasons. One, if you're working in the terminal and you have to do really quick editing, you can just open it inside the terminal and you don't have to go to a new application, open the file, save it, everything. You can just open it inside and quickly edit it. Also, if you're working on something called a remote machine through SSH in the terminal, then you can use the command line editor to directly edit it because the files live on another machine. So let's talk about Vim specifically. Vim stands for VI improved. So it's an improved clone of the original VI, which was a Unix text editor in the 1970s. It's an extremely powerful editor, but it has a pretty steep learning curve because there's a lot you can do. So most Unix systems come with Vim, but Windows does not. However, you can install it on Windows. There are many different versions of Vim, so you can find the one that works for you and then install it. So let's assume you're on a Unix system or you have Vim somewhere, then you can open the terminal and type Vim. So I'm inside my terminal right now, and then let's say I want to just create a file. So you can either type Vim, but I like to type the shortcut VI, and we can just say test.txt. Okay, so once we're in here, I can press I to insert, and then I can just say hello, and then I'll do escape to go outside of insert. And then I can do :W for write or save, or I can do WQ for save and quit. So now if I look at all of my files, I can see that I have test. So that's an example of how you can use it. And then since I just interacted with Vim only using my keyboard commands, I can type and navigate through the file really quickly because I don't have to click with my mouse, then go back to the keyboard and type, and then click. Lastly, Vim can be customized by adding your own settings and plugins to the local vimrc file. So I have added a color scheme to my settings, and I've also downloaded plugins so I can search through files inside Vim. So there's a lot more you can do. It's really powerful, in conclusion, with a lot of practice.
So Emacs is another command line editor. It might be harder to use than Vim, but it has its advantages. So if you're curious about the differences, that's something you can research on your own. It can also be easily launched through your terminal. So Emacs, like Vim, is another command line editor. People have preferences. I'm not super familiar with it, but if you want to install it, you can hit brew install Emacs if you have brew set up already. Because Emacs is already installed, if I want to open a file, I can just hit Emacs test file, which is the name of the file, and it shows up, and I'm able to edit it in my terminal. Something to note about the terminal is that it's pretty powerful, but it's also very individual. You can set things like environment variables or have different package managers that make it such that you are very comfortable with your terminal, but not someone else's. If you anticipate spending a lot of time with it, it can be good to try and customize it and gain some practice with it so you are more efficient in the long run. But But say you don't like working in your terminal, you can try and use standalone text editors. Common ones are VS Code, Sublime Text, Atom. I'll be going over Atom because it's one of my favorites. Atom does not run in a terminal like a command line editor. Instead, it's a software that manages its own windows, menus, and the difference between a standalone code editor and an IDE is the default feature set. So by default, a standalone code editor may only have basic functionality like file reading, writing, and syntax highlighting. However, all editors in this standalone text editor category can be made to look close to a full IDE with the addition of third-party packages. A standalone text editor gives you some basic functionality, and if you want to have more fun with it, you can install other things from the internet that make it more fun to use. If I want to open a file in Atom, I'll just exit out of this really quickly. I have some interesting files in my dev folder. Say, for example, I want to open pcalc.c. I can just do atom pcalc.c. It pops up in this different screen where I'm able to edit it. And as you can see, it's pretty nice with these different colors. If you're curious, the file I'm looking at is just code for a calculator, but you can see that like the fonts and the colors are things that you can customize to make it more individualized for you.
I'll share an example of another standalone text editor called Sublime Text. Something I like about Sublime is that you can open your like file, what's called file tree here. So I can see I have a folder called example and I have like 2 text files in it. Another thing that's cool is that you can do Command P if you're on Mac, or I think if you're on Windows, it might be Control P. And then you can search through your folder and like find the file you want to open. And then I can like go ahead and edit it. So it like saves time because I don't have to like click around in the folders.
So before we jump into IDEs, here are a couple of packages to make a standalone text editor more interesting. So here are a couple of interesting ones. So this is one that works with autocomplete and will autocomplete things that you type. This one is specific for auto-completing math, and this one is really interesting. If you have a bunch of to-dos, this one identifies all of them for you so that you know exactly where to go and you can click on what needs to be fixed. So these are just a few of the many examples of things that can be added to standalone text editors. The next thing that we're going to talk about are IDEs, which stands for Integrated Development Environment. It's a text editor that's dedicated specifically to coding, often in a specific language. So in addition to basic editing functions, IDEs often include features that allow a developer to compile, build, and run code, install and manage dependencies, and manage version control, often with Git integration. If you use Python a lot, you might have heard of Pycharm, which is an IDE for Python. So many simple Python projects aren't complex enough to like fully take advantage of all the features in an IDE, but it still gives a good picture of what you can accomplish. Here's kind of a visual of what an IDE looks like. You have your console, a terminal. You can set breakpoints to stop a program at certain places for debugging. You can run and debug different programs. It really makes it like a more streamlined environment to code and figure out what might be going wrong with your projects. Another IDE you might not have heard of is Brackets, which is a great editor that's specific for web development. It has a nice feature that allows you to like render your HTML live as you type it. It's also pretty user-friendly with limited configuration. You can just download and follow instructions. So if you're interested in web development, that's something you can check out as well.
I'll talk about Eclipse next. I've personally found setup for Eclipse to be more complicated. It has like a lot of features, so it's kind of similar to like Vim in that way, but it can do a lot of things if you like can set it all up. So first, it can perform live linting, which means like evaluating like the style and the way you've written your code. It can detect syntax errors in your code. So instead of finding out at runtime that like, oh my goodness, I forgot like a semicolon, you can just see it right away and fix it before running it. It has a pretty robust autocomplete system, and there's a lot of tutorials online for Eclipse, so you can find a lot of information. The last IDE we'll talk about is IntelliJ. It's like the new sexy Java IDE, and it's bigger, faster, and more reliable than Eclipse. If you're writing Java, then IntelliJ is a great option for you. Setup is pretty system dependent for IntelliJ and all the other IDEs we talked about today, so we won't be going over that in this video. If you're interested in installing any of these IDEs, there are lots of tutorials and guides online, so feel free to look it up on YouTube or Google, etc. Like and subscribe for more content like this. We'll be posting videos every Monday, and please comment below if you have any questions, and we'll answer them soon. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.